Hey, it's Em, here to talk about the book I just finished reading, The Empress of Time by Kylie Lee Baker. This is the sequel to The Keeper of Night, which I read back in 2022. It's a duology, and I was aware there was a second book. I liked The Keeper of Night. I gave it a 3.5, I think, and I liked it. I didn't love it, and so I had kind of only sparingly checked my library for the sequel, and I finally found it. Decided to go ahead and read the second one, which is The Empress of Time. I'm not sure about the title. I mean, there is a lot of time turning, which is just them stopping and starting time. That's a whole thing. We'll get into it, but to put it into perspective, the story is about Rin. She is half a British Reaper, as in Grim Reaper. There's an army of Reapers who serve the goddess Anku, who is, death, I suppose. And then Rin is half Shinigami, which is a Japanese pseudo equivalent to a Reaper, someone who takes souls for the death goddess. And in the first book, Rin runs away from Britain after getting into some trouble with fellow Reapers because she's this only half Reaper and she's looked down upon, and she gets to Japan. This is all set in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So she gets to Japan, she brings her half-brother Nevin with her, who is also a Reaper, and finds out that Japan also sees her as this foreigner, not really truly Japanese. So a lot of the themes in both books is alienation and belonging and, that kind of thing. By the end of the first book, spoilers if you haven't read it, but by the end of the first book, Rin has killed the Japanese goddess of death and assumed her throne. So she is now the goddess of death. She has lost her brother to the deep darkness, beyond kind of the kingdom of death, which is known as Yomi. And she's killed her husband Hiro, who was a god. I can't remember what of now, but in any case, he's the one who, I guess, sent Nevin into the deep darkness, and so Rin marries him and kills him, and basically assumes rights and responsibilities of Yomi. So the second book picks up 10 years later. Rin has been devouring the hearts of living people in an attempt to get strong enough to fetch her brother Nevin back from the deep darkness. I was all cool, this might be a very cool quest kind of thing, but pretty early on Nevin just arrives out of the deep darkness, along with the yokai that was a child in the first book, but it's been for them a century or something in this deep darkness, even though for Rin it's only been 10 years. So, and Reapers live, for centuries. So that in itself is not astounding. He doesn't actually look any older, just more haggard from having been out there with the monsters, right, in the darkness. He has the yokai, on the other hand, has grown somewhat. He's no longer a small child. Acts very childish, juvenile. She's a kitsune type. She can turn into a fox. And yeah, so the quest then, so it turns out that Ivy, who was the mean girl from England that sent Rin leaving, is coming with a force of Reapers to Japan to confront Rin because she's mad about Rin's existence. I don't know, it seems stupid to bother, but I guess there's also an allegory for the British coming to Japan in those years. We're talking about the Meiji kind of Japan becoming more open and and the influences coming in, like the men of Japan wearing British suits more and things like that. Now, that might have been interesting, but it really wasn't explored at all. We didn't really explore any of the cultural influence like that in this book. I feel like that would have been a very interesting angle, but no, instead, Ren's whole goal is to stop Ivy's ships from arriving at all. So Tsukuyomi, yes, that's his name. Tsukuyomi is the moon god, and he is there to help. He says his father, which is kind of the king of the gods, has sent him to protect Ren. I guess because if a foreign person comes and kills Ren, that foreigner will become a Japanese goddess, and they're already uncomfortable with this kind of half Japanese goddess of death. They don't really want a fully foreign goddess of death. Again, this isn't really explored or explained a whole lot. It's kind of implied. The hatred for Ren as a foreigner on a godly throne is definitely discussed. The Shinigami don't respect Ren because they don't see her as one of them, and things like that. But the broader cultural discussion is not there. It's really just focused down on Ren. It's all told from Ren's point of view, and it does get repetitive, and it does start to drag because she's so salty about everything, and she goes between feeling salty and feeling guilty, and it's an exhausting loop of emotions because it's the same thing over and over. She doesn't seem to actually get anywhere with any of her feelings. But in any case, Tsukuyomi introduces Ren to his brother, the god of the oceans, and Ren's like, can you stop the ships? And he's like, well, I could, but I don't have any real good reason to, which is kind of weird because you would think he wouldn't want the foreigners to come, but at the same time, the gods are kind of like, we're removed from all this. I don't know. Some of the motivations were a little murky, but in any case, he sends Ren on a quest to find a sword, and she has to go talk to the sun goddess, and the sun goddess and the moon god are not speaking because of some... It became somewhat video gamey in the whole sense of, it's this thing, and here's a side quest, and here's a side quest, and we're gonna go here, and we gotta do this thing, and then we're gonna do this thing, and we're gonna make this deal with this person, and I don't play video games. So for me, that's not a compelling story. And then it all kind of comes to a dead end. That just made me feel like, wow, what a waste of time this all was. And and then there's just in a couple of places, these very long drawn out battle scenes. And I, by about the 50% mark, was skimming a lot of this because, again, it was repetitive, it was drawn out, and I just was kind of like, so what happens? I don't care about the looping thoughts that just keep going on and on, because I get it. I get how she feels, and she doesn't seem to be changing in any significant way that is interesting, character wise. So I did like one thing. I liked at one point Ren goes to the palace, the Emperor and Empress of Japan's palace, because she's led to believe the sword she's looking for is there. And she meets the Empress, and they have actually a really kind of fun banter, conversation, fight scene that was just enough and just right, I feel like. And that was probably, for me, the most fun I had in this book. It's a blip. As for the time turning, that's another thing. Because the Reapers can stop time, they have to use a gold and silver watch or some kind of gold and silver implement to stop time. And then if they touch someone, that person gets pulled out of the time freeze, basically. And that's an interesting concept. It's used here almost confusingly with the fight scenes, the way the time is layered and stuff. And spoilers, but by the time Ivy arrives and there's the whole big fight, it just goes on, and I'm like literally just scanning because I don't care about the blow by blow, you know. I'm just like, just tell me what happened, how does it end, you know. And yeah, so it was fine. I gave it 2.5, like 1 star less than the first one, which I had liked, but again, not loved. And this one I liked less, I guess. And it might have just been my frame of mind. Like, I don't know. I don't feel like this one was substantively different from the first one in tone and everything. I guess the first one was also kind of very questy. But that one had been laid out. Oh, here's a list of 10 people you gotta reap or whatever. I don't even remember the actual quest. That tells you like how much this stuck in my brain or how much impact it had on me as a duology. But like, I remember thinking, okay, well, you know, this one, it was more like they kept moving the goalpost every time. You were like, are we finally going to get somewhere? They change it again. It would be somewhere else. Your princess is in another castle. And then it ended up being kind of pointless entirely. So that was just kind of frustrating. I was like, why did I even read all that then? And yeah, I mean, it was fine, but not, I don't know. I think the writing is decent. And again, some of the themes were pretty good. I just wish there had been maybe some differences, but overall, it's not terrible. Oh, I just realized you can see Anna Bay. Yeah, so that was my overall feeling for that book. And I don't know if Kylie Lee Baker has written anything else since those. I guess this one came out last year before. I don't even know. But if you've read it, if you've read the duology or anything else by this author or anything similar in theme, or, you know, let me know in the comments if there's anything you would recommend like this. I mean, I love the setting. I love that time period in Japan. I thought that was fun. I do just wish broadly there had been a little bit more of discussion of the impact on the culture at that time of like people coming in. I'm headed to the library this afternoon, so we'll see what I find. I do have a big stack of books here, but you know, I can always be persuaded to pick up something else if I find something interesting. And in any case, until next time, take care.